Okay, excellent. I think we're recording. And we've got, we have definitely have most members on at this point, which is great. So we have a really brief meeting today, so I'm going to dive right in. And I think when we have another opportunity to have a more lengthy meeting, I think we would like to spend some time kind of going around the Teams meeting to get to know some of our new members a little bit better. This is, I think, one of our first meetings with our new members formally joining now that you all have been officially appointed to serve on the subcommittee. But unfortunately, it looked like folks just had a really limited window of availability today. So I think that means that we're just going to try to do some really brief updates just to make sure everyone is on the same page with the work that's been going on over the summer on mostly the various requests for proposals that we've had out and about and soliciting contractors for to do work that this committee has been focused on. So, and I have to admit that the agenda did not link to the minutes from our June meeting because I'm still kind of wrapping my head around updating the website with a lot of really great help from Marion. But I will try to make those available when I get caught up. And in the meantime, I suppose we could save the approval for those minutes until our next meeting in September, if that's okay for everyone, with everyone.
Sure.
I think that's good.
Okay.
I did just post them, Megan, if you want folks to review them.
Thank you so much, Marion. I appreciate that.
And hi, everybody. I'll just say it's Jared. I'm here. I'm still having trouble accessing video with Teams. Hopefully we'll do Zoom in the future, or I'll figure it out. But I just wanted you to know that I'm here. I'm just sorry that I can't be on video.
Hey, Jared. Sorry about that. I didn't see you on, but thank you for letting us know that you're here. And sorry about Teams. That's also because I set up this meeting. So we'll try to use a better platform that's more accessible for folks in the future. Okay, so maybe we'll circle back to any comments on the minutes later in the meeting when folks may have had a chance to take a look at them. But in the meantime, let's dive right into, let's talk about a date for the next meeting. So traditionally, we've held this subcommittee meeting, I believe, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the first Wednesday, I believe, of every month. And if it's helpful for folks, I can send out another meeting scheduling poll so that we can maybe find a time that works best for everyone to have a regularly scheduled monthly check-in meeting. Does that work for everyone? Because I am assuming with our new membership, that time that we've met historically might not work for folks. So happy to do that this week to get that back on the calendar.
Well, I have 2 o'clock on September 7th in my appointment book already, so whatever works is fine.
Okay. I'll send around a when to meet poll again, and we'll try to find the kind of regularly scheduled time that works the best for most of the members. We have a really large subcommittee now, which is great. I think it just makes scheduling a little bit more challenging. It's hard to find a time that works best for everyone. So we will do our best to do that. So I'll send that out this week. And then we have a lot of contractual work that is in various stages. Yes, go ahead, Jared.
Oh, sorry. Just before we move on from that, I'm wondering, I feel like one of the main variables in the past has been teaching schedules of the members of the committee who are at colleges and universities in particular. I'm wondering if, like Jay, or if Leslie Ann, or if anybody who has class schedules are on, if you feel confident that you already know what those will be, or whether we need to I'm just trying to remember from days when I was in school when we actually knew our class schedule in terms of when people would be able to fill it out, so that we could set a recurring date that we would know at least through the fall and through the calendar year, end of the calendar year.
Hey, this is Jay. Thanks for thinking of me, Jared. I am no longer a university faculty member, so that's
that's right.
I I do need to get permission from my boss now to be here, but I think that's more flexible than having to teach that time. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is Tara. The Wednesday afternoon schedule works. I do have my teaching assignments and that block is clear. I was just going to
Great.
ask Megan, that's a 2-hour block, right? The Wednesdays at 2?
We have met for 2 hours in the past. I think it depends on what we have going on any particular month. But it would be great if you have 2 hours of availability. I think it would be great to hold those 2 hours just in case. So that's really helpful to know, Tara. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't teach in the spring, so
Okay,
I'd be okay with keeping that block.
excellent.
So this is Leslie Ann, and I teach Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons. I would not be able to make that.
Are the what so I'm assuming that's not the only times that you teach, Leslie Ann, or is that
So I said Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons I teach.
okay?
So it would be
Okay.
great if you still sent out the poll, Megan, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
I will do that. Thank you. Any other scheduling items before the poll gets sent out that we should be aware of? Okay. All right, Jared, anything else before we move in?
No, sorry. Thanks for pausing there. I just
No problem. Thanks for remembering that. Okay, so really briefly, we have had a few RFPs out and task groups from the subcommittee and from other subcommittees, task groups that have been assembled, I think from various subcommittees have been working through review of proposals. So we're just going to go through a few that I think this subcommittee has worked on or maybe of interest to this subcommittee. And the first is one that I think everyone's pretty familiar with, which is the life cycle analysis request for proposal. So just to remind folks, we have a task group that has been assembled from this subcommittee and from a few others to review proposals for work that would provide a recommendation and a framework for how we would assess greenhouse gas or how we would account for greenhouse gas emissions from energy, from the life cycle emissions from energy use. Sorry, that did not come out very well. But
Meg, this is Richard. I'm going to leave for a few minutes. And
yes, Richard, I'm sorry. I said that I would move this to the end of the
That's fine.
agenda, so I'm happy to do that.
You can do it now. You just need to tell me when you're done.
Okay, so Richard has a conflict, so we will, Richard, I'll send you an email when we're done.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we have been we reviewed 3 proposals related to the RFP that came in this summer, and the task group has been engaged in that review. We recently met last week, and after asking some additional questions of the respondents for the proposal, and I think we're pretty close to making a decision in terms of which contractor to select. And then, of course, we'll have to engage in the contract negotiation process with that entity. And so it's my understanding that Jane is just kind of doing some checkbacks with a few members of that task group that were not able to participate in our final conversation. But I think we have, I believe, consensus on which contractor to move forward with, and we can provide more details about that the next time we meet. But just generally, the proposals that we did receive were very impressive. We had proposals from some very reputable firms that have a lot of experience in the life cycle analysis area, and that was really encouraging. And so I think it's going to shape up to be a really great project, obviously with continued coordination with the agency and this subcommittee along with the contractor. So that's where we are. We'll have more specific details, I think, for the next meeting, but that process is moving along, and I invite other members of the task group to share any information that they might want to about the life cycle analysis RFP.
Yeah, and once, this is Jared, once that contract negotiation is done after a contractor has been selected, I just want folks to everybody to know that one of the first things that we have all agreed on as a task group is that the first thing that needs to happen, and this will be with the task group and with this committee in a very transparent way, is getting clarity on definitions, assumptions, boundary decisions in alignment with the law and with the what was laid out in the request for proposals. So that'll be an exciting part of the process to make sure that we are aligned and have good confidence about definitions, assumptions, and boundaries that will be used, because life cycle analysis or upstream analysis can mean different things to different people in different circumstances. So we want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language and have those clearly delineated at the very beginning of the process. And that will, the plan is to have, multiple voices participating in that portion. So I'm excited for that.
This is Ken. There's another topic that arose that I think we will be seeing again, which is that the extent to which analysis incorporates traditional ecological knowledge. And what I will be asking on regular basis is some more definition or some more specificity, because it does take many of the analyses in different directions or with different content. And so let's say it's probably going to arise again. And I think to the extent anybody on this committee can help provide some specificity about some topics that should be considered in our other analyses, that's going to be important.
All right, thanks, Ken and Jared. That's helpful. So I think we'll move on next, and let me just email Richard to invite him back into the conversation. An update about the Municipal Vulnerability Index RFP, and Jane isn't able to join us today, so I would be happy to defer to Marion or Leslie Ann or other members of that task group that have been helping to review the proposals for the Municipal Vulnerability Index. And sorry to put folks on the spot, but just a brief update on where things are with that project would be great.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide a quick overview, and then would love to hear from others involved in that as well. So a great group of folks has met to review the proposals. We received 5 proposals for the Municipal Vulnerability Index, which, for those that are less familiar, this would be the creation of a spatial tool to assess vulnerability from climate hazards and impacts, including socioeconomic and other factors across the state at a municipal level. The task group reviewed the proposals and scored and came out with 2 frontrunners. Sent follow-up questions after discussion that we were hoping for some clarification on a few specific points. Has met since then to review the follow-up questions from the 2 frontrunners. Still was not able to make a decision, so is scoring those 2 again. And the deadline is the end of the day today. And we'll then hopefully have a frontrunner to offer the project to after today. I think a couple of the key things that stood out from the 2 frontrunners and also informed the follow-up questions were both the compatibility and sort of the data management side of creating that tool, the spatial layers that would be used, the actual application that would be used to develop the mapping tool, and the compatibility with Vermont state systems and the work with our GIS team. And then the other component was really the stakeholder engagement process and how that would interface with A&R's capacity to do stakeholder work, and the evaluation of factors to consider in the Municipal Vulnerability Index. So sort of 2 sides and looking at very different aspects of qualifications of the project teams and previous experience. But we've had some good discussion and hoping we'll come out with a good winner after today's scoring. I'm happy to turn it over to Leslie and or others to fill in anything I missed.
You didn't miss anything, Marion, I just wanted to point out that Jay and Jared Ulmer are also on that task group. So kudos to them to bringing this as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Marion, and other members of the task group. Okay, so let's move on to the agricultural emissions or agriculture greenhouse gas emissions RFP. Colin, could you give us an update on that one?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Megan. So the purpose of this RFP is to have a contractor, and this stems from some of the recommendations that came out of the Ag and Ecosystems Subcommittee. But to have a contractor kind of do an analysis of a number of different tools for quantifying greenhouse gas emissions in the agricultural sector, and to kind of find the best, most appropriate, and kind of best available data sets to go along with that analysis for Vermont, and to kind of hopefully feed off some existing work like the carbon budget. And there's also been some additional work through the UVM extension, I believe, in this space too, looking at these. So A&R kind of crafted an original draft of this RFP that was informed by kind of those Ag and Ecosystems recommendations and AAFM, the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. And then we met as a kind of a subgroup last week and kind of talked it through with members of AAFM and Ali White of the UVM extension, and kind of talked through a few minor changes. And the plan going forward is, I believe, for Jane to incorporate a few of those and send it out to our kind of subgroup again. And once we agree on it, I think the next step in the process was to have it move to a meeting of the Ag and Ecosystems Subcommittee, and kind of for further input, and then hopefully come up with a final to be posted on our website after that. And I'm not sure about the timing for that Ag and Ecosystem meeting. I think that was a little bit up in the air still last I heard, but yeah, so I don't know if Megan, I know you were on that as well, but I don't know if there's anything else to add to that, but that's about what I've got.
No, I think that's great. I just see that Richard has his hand up. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that with a Middlebury College intern, we are close to finishing up a greenhouse gas inventory for Addison County, Vermont, which Colin has helped with considerably. And we would really like to account for both emissions of greenhouse gases and also sinks, places where greenhouse gases are sequestered. And I'm going to quote liberally from the preamble to the RFP that Colin is just talking about what we don't know, mostly as a way of defending us against local concerns. I mean, if the state doesn't know how to do this, then it's not reasonable to think that we in Addison County would know how to do it either. And so we are very interested in the results of this RFP, because it will help us doing a better job with Addison County's inventory than we were able to do before. Most of you probably know Vermont really well, but Addison County and Franklin County together are well over half of Vermont's agricultural output. And so agriculture is a really big piece of the economy in Addison County, and we need to account for it properly. And at the moment, we can't really.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I will just chime in real quick, because that kind of spurred a thought for me. Is that these tools that this contractor is going to be looking at are net accounting tools. So like Richard mentioned, they would also account for kind of sequestration, carbon sinks as well. That is not how the emissions inventory currently functions. So this would be kind of a supplemental piece of information to go along with that, or potentially if we can, and the hope is to kind of make a more robust kind of full land use or the agriculture, forestry, and other land use sector that will incorporate this, but that may be a little ways down the road depending on what this finds and the data necessary, and that lots of considerations, but that's kind of the plan going down the road, is to explore that and at least have a supplemental net piece for now for the ag sector specifically.
Yeah, for better or for worse, we at the Climate Economy Action Center of Addison County are not constrained by the same constraints that that Colin is. We don't have a 30-year baseline that we need to try to stay consistent with, for one thing. And we actually are going to revise our baseline numbers using the methods that we used for 2020. We're going to go back and redo the 2017 calculations using the methods we used for 2020. That wouldn't be reasonable if we had to go back to 1970. So there are some constraints that we're not subject to that Colin is.
All right, thank you, Colin and Richard. And before we move to public comment, unless there's any other pressing updates from members of the subcommittee, I think I just wanted to mention that I think it makes sense for us to spend time during our next meeting, whenever we figure out a good time for that, to spend a significant portion of the meeting on our work plan for the rest of the year, just to kind of reorganize now that we have a lot of great new membership, and just look at that work plan that we had originally, and reorient based on kind of where we are with these various efforts related to our contractual work. Does that sound good to folks? And are there any other major items that members of the subcommittee think should be on the next agenda? And I'm happy to ask this question again in the scheduling email that I'll send out. But so feel free to take some time to think about it. But I think that would be a good place for us to start.
Megan, and I don't know if Jared wants to speak to this too, but there was some discussion at the steering committee meeting this morning about budget requests. And that's something this committee probably needs to spend some time thinking about, is not just the work in hand, but what are sort of the next questions that we're interested in seeing looked at. There's obviously capacity constraints within the climate office today, and aren't how many different contracts we can have going at a single point in time. But I do think there's some urgency associated with thinking about what the next set or sets of analyses we may want to engage in would be, and recommendations to bring back to the council.
Yeah, I very much agree with what Secretary Moore said, and with what you suggested, Megan, especially if it's coming after the other piece that you mentioned at the beginning, Megan, which is taking some really good time for just introductions, since we have a lot of new folks. And if people have suggestions on how we facilitate that and what type of information or would be helpful to share with each other, what you'd like to know about fellow committee members, please let Megan and I know as we look ahead to both planning and then facilitating that next agenda. I do think the other thing that would be helpful, and I think this would come out in that work planning process, is a bit of an overview of the existing task groups and what they have, the task groups relative to the overall subcommittee. Yeah, and maybe that's a specific, I don't want to make it overly complicated, but it does seem to me that there are a number of task groups that have a good sense of potential budgetary requests, because it's at the task group level often where a lot of these analyses are being tracked and responded to. So, I mean, if we in your email, Megan, it includes the entire subcommittee, but we might ask people to just think through the lens of the existing work of the task groups and any next steps that they can foresee in the next year that would be either necessary or desirable.
Yeah, that sounds great, Jared. And I know we still have, our membership includes liaisons from other subcommittees, and so hopefully we could kind of organize it to frame the discussion with the help of the liaisons from other subcommittees as well. I think that maybe that's what you were suggesting, but.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So as I said, I will send out an email to figure out when we can meet next. And feel free to pass along any other ideas, but I think that's probably will make for a pretty full discussion, the items that have been mentioned just in the last few minutes. And we're at time, but happy to invite members of the public that are joining us today to make brief comments if you'd like. And I'm happy to include a, longer carve out for public comment at our next meeting as well, understanding that this was a really brief time for us to just kind of check in. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. It's great to see you and hear from you, and we will connect again soon. Stay tuned for an email from me to schedule. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Megan.
Yep. Thanks.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.